Welcome to my YouTube channel. I just woke up like 2 hours ago. It's 1:22 a.m. And I was thinking about making a kniving video. I got two knives. One's Old Bear Grills, the other's kitchen knife. But I swear, I was thinking about smoking a cigarette. And before thinking about smoking a cigarette, I was like, I can show you what I'm working on. One is this. Power line. It's multiple plug-in, so these come off, but the rest of them are out in the shop. And you can switch the heads. I'll show you what it's for in a second. I cut them off because it worked, and then what I remembered was I cut them off to see if it worked or something. It works. It's got a selector switch on it. 3 volts, 4.5 volts, 6 volts, 7.5 volts, 9 volts, and 12 volts. So you can slide this over a little tab, and when this is plugged into the wall, it only produces 3 volts through the line. Bump it over 1, it produces 4.5. One more, it produces 6. One more, it produces 7.5. One more, and it produces equivalent to a 9-volt battery. 9 volts. One more is 12. What I was working on is cool. I'm learning how to YouTube magic. What I'm working on is this. And this. So it's 110 volts to this right now. Boom. 110. Then it converts it to 12 volts. And this wire runs all the way up here. I snipped this off so I could connect wire there, so I could test it. So it'd be like that. As far as I know, the white stripe's positive, the black one, solid black, is negative. This is a Car Audio Scotch 500K microfarad capacitor. The setting's at 12 volts. I'm a normal hick. Positive. You know how you stick your tongue to a 9-volt battery? It's 12 volts. It'll still get you. Don't do that. Watch here. You can see that's 12 volts. So this is charging at 12 volts. Capacitor kids know that these hold the charge differently and they can explode. And you're supposed to discharge them for storage use. Secretly, in my world, we charge them up and then store them. We change the setting to 9 volts. You can watch this meter drop. So you'll see. It'll start flashing. This has a low voltage warning, so when it gets to 9 volts, this skosh starts getting low. You'll see it starts flashing. It's letting you know that you have a low voltage situation to the capacitor. So it makes sense. To further show you what I got planned for this is I've got some subwoofer situations, and I love electricity. So it's steady 9 volts, and it's set at 9 volts. But it's a household plug-in that converted it to 12-volt system. So I can run my subwoofer car audio stuff to my home stereo, and then fill my living room full of subwoofers and go to sleep while it's on. That's what I like. 12 volts, it'll charge right back up to 12. To prove to you it works, I got this light, which is a good light. This is one of them weird little lights that only has one wire because the housing is the ground. So all we have to do is plug the positive to the positive just by touching it, and the ground to the ground. You can watch the voltage go down. Slowly, sometimes, like last night I was testing it, it charges back up. This is a tail light for a car, tag light bulb. Secretly, that's what's wrong about Malibu. My damn, sleeping. Sometimes when it goes to sleep, you gotta check your wires and make sure they didn't come loose. Shouldn't have that problem if you connect it correctly. But so you'll know it's still connected, we just sometimes when that voltage goes down, the lights will come back on, sometimes not. But I want to show you that it still holds a charge. Well, unplug this, and then you'll see the lights come on. So you say it's still together. See the voltage drop, and then the light will slowly get dimmer. That's the draw that happens in your amplifier when the bass hits, and then you'll notice your headlights on your car get dimmer. The capacitor helps prevent that from happening by holding a charge. Some kids don't know, but my problem, I'll tell you specifically, mentally I knew, my brain says parallel, kind of, but it's like a bridge. So what I mean is, for whatever reason, I connected positive to positive, and from negative, like it was running through the line in conjunction with one line, and that's the incorrect way. To make sense of that, you gotta have positive to positive, negative to negative from the power source, which this would be like the car battery, right? 12 volts to it. But there's a reason there's a line here and here. There doesn't have to be a line, but there's different type of capacitors, and that's the danger zone, the truth. Your positives and your negatives from your amp connect to the same positive and negative terminal for that process to keep the lights from dimming to work. If you run it through it in a one line, like positive from battery to this positive, and then from the negative side use that as the positive line, you're like wasting your time. There's other people that would disagree, like masters of electrical engineering, depending on the type of capacitor, because some of those types of capacitors have to be ran in line with through one line, but there's multiples. That makes sense? It's supposed to make sense, but it's not, because that's why I'm upset at myself. Where it agrees that the ions in the capacitor build up on one side, and when there's power running through it, positive to and negative, positive and negative, so you made a bridge, they balance out and hold the charge, and then the power line runs straight through, right? The understanding? So this side positive from the battery to the amp, this side negative, battery to the amp, but in the middle, battery to amp, or battery to amp, right in the middle, boom, that's where it connects. So you splice the wire and put a piece on it to connect it. Normally use two different wires, positive, negative, so it works. Yeah. I don't want to talk about this. I don't know that stuff, so I'm not going to talk about it. That's the truth. Future reference, electricity capacitors and them working in line per one line, like a giant resistor at the power company, except for its robotics. So that makes sense? Like a double throwback switch that's built in. How this one has computer work on top with LED voltmeter, except for it have a double throwback switch in it, and it cycles, so it runs in line capacitor or some shit. I'm not good at that shit. When the wire came undone, that's why we're flashing. And my light coming back on. The project for this, it could be this box or this box, but what I want to do, I like working with the resistors and diodes and computer boards. It's like electrical engineering, but I'm on disability. I'm fucking hurt and stuff. You snip them off. You got one that swelled up and popped, and you cut it off, and you can put a new one in its place. It's a computer job, but I'm on disability. I like the YouTube side where they show you how to build stuff. And that's the truth. So I listen to my heavy metal music and EDM house mixes and rap and rock and roll, whatever, country, classical. And kind of get geetered out on creating a computer board in the living room. That's what I'm going to use this for, sort of. And I want to build a coffee table that's like a big computer board. That's the truth. And I want to have stuff. So depending, I wired it up last night so that power ran to here, and I had it run into this box. So that's on and off. And I had the switch wired to it. And then I seen this other switch over here, and I was like, I'll use that one. Long story short, I took it all apart and put it all away because I was done with my little hobby project I was tinkering with. Future reference, in line of the positive, you can use this 110 switch on the 12 volt. It says only, like copper wire only and 110 only. Switch is a switch. I use lowriders that have compressors for airbags. These are actually really good switches to turn the compressor on and off. Pisses them off. They're like, what the hell is that? It's like some weird RV shit. Fuck off. So anyways, I wired that up last night, and the plan, future reference, I'll have like this coffee table that's not a coffee table. I sit on the couch, and as I watch, blowing shit up, watching the video, that's what I want to do. Sort of wintertime, that's what I like doing. I take my stereos apart and mess with them. And since that's what I do, like mess with computer stuff, like a PC, you know, the wire that comes out at 12 volts, stuff like that, or stuff I can test with a 12 volt system with this setup, my capacitor, and this, without putting too much strain on this box so it don't get too hot, right? So if it does draw too much. Certain projects that this sucker right here is going to be, this is like more cooler than my capacitor, right? Like this sucker, I'm like, sweet, 9 volts, yeah, kaboom, blew my face off. Remember that? It's like winning the Powerball as far as getting exploded. Sorry, God. That sucker melted. Like I said, you could die. See that arc and that arc? This melted to it. Like really, you could die like super fast with a capacitor. So anyways, has anybody ever built a real R2-D2? That's the stuff I like watching. So I ain't gonna. Well anyways, that's it. That's my project that I was working on. And I was like, if I press record, I have to share that, right? That's the deal I made. Because I record stuff all the time. But I always suck at video editing. I just record and press upload. 90% of the time it says I'm not uploading that shit. Like the server won't. But ready? I'll unhook these wires. Try not to zap ourselves. There's still a charge in this. To show you how I discharge mine, look, that side's positive. It says it right there. You see? That side has a line. I hooked positive to the positive line to understand how it would connect to the amp straight. Not straight line, but like that. Yeah. Positive, and then negative, and then same thing as before. Technically, that's discharging it. Science-wise, they actually don't recommend using a light or a piece of steel. There's actual computer science majors. I better connect that. There's actually specific tools designed for discharging capacitors as an electrical engineer. But you can pay $1,200 for the tool or buy a light bulb. But it doesn't work at, you know, working for the power company. So anyways, that's pretty much discharged, but not. It's not enough that it'll zap me, but it's enough that this light won't come on now, which is sufficient. But my project is that's gonna actually, like a solar power guy that shows you his capacitor for his solar powered house, off-grid house. I'm building an off-grid coffee table. So my solar panels are already out in my car, and my wire's long enough that I could mount it outside and run it like through the window. To my future plan is to sit on the couch, hobby stuff. But that's weirdly like what I want to do. Normal shit. So when you see him super gluing magnets to stuff, and then it makes the motor spin, and then the little light comes on. Except for I want to, like an engineer, build a fucking roller coaster out of that shit on my coffee table. So that one powers that one, which powers that one, which fucking pisses off that one, and the only time that other one works is when that one's pissed off, which makes those molecules fucking like super positively charged, because those ones are all pissed off. And then they're like, fuck you, I'm in a good mood. And she's like, oh, whatever. And the next thing you know, that other thing turns on. That's why I like watching YouTube. I met a girl like that once. It's the truth. But I love this capacitor, but it's the truth. The reason I'm happy, I bought it and I wired it up wrong in my car. And the whole time I was looking at it, I was like, that's correct. And then my brain was like, that's not correct, dude. Like the directions that came with it, I just fucking, like, anytime I looked at this capacitor for about a year after I disconnected it, even at watching YouTube videos, I was just like, that's not correct. So I removed it from my car. And I'm glad I did. I don't have an amp, and I was trying to use it in line from a car stereo. That makes sense? Yeah. So from the ignition power, positive from the ignition, I was running positive to the, what I'm trying to explain. Earlier I tried to explain, but that's what I did. Positive from the ignition to positive on this, like the directions said. Mentally, I was like, how the fuck do I get power to go through it? And I was like, I cussed at myself a long time. I watched 4 videos at like 10 o'clock this morning and a couple yesterday that pretty much made me laugh, because as soon as I watched them, I was like, see, that made sense. And then there's a lot of videos, matters pertaining to Scotch microfarad, but the ground from the stereo, if I were connecting the stereo, the ground from the stereo should have connected to here, to the negative on this side, and then that negative should have been grounded to the frame or to the negative terminal on the battery. The positive from the stereo should have been connected to the positive on this side. And then my hot wire from the battery, the positive side, just like grounding the stereo to the frame or to the negative terminal, power to the stereo from the battery or power source would have to go to the positive to the stereo. in my car, like that's what I sit there and would look at and think about. But I always had like stuff I had to do. So I just disconnected it because I didn't want to mess with it. And waited, and then I connected it, and then I disconnected it. Sort of what I was thinking. I really want to make that hobby desk. Hobby table. And I really want to have multiple, kind of like this, multiple energy options for projects. But I'm gonna, if I do build my little hobby table, I really want to integrate my solar panel kit, my solar panel, and this. But deciding if it has to have a double throwback switch. Like this is an engineering part. 110 volts to reducer, transistor, or transformer, transducer, to 12 volts. But a solar panel that runs also in line with it. And that's only because, for the sake of science. But science-wise, legality-wise, if you have solar panel on your house, you have to have a double throwback switch. Or alternate energy source. As far as like where I live. Science-wise, don't. Because unplugging this would be the same thing as having a double throwback switch. These would fold down, but what happens if you plug, like science-wise? I wonder if there's stuff inside of here that keeps it from amplifying it in the opposite direction. My capacitor holds a charge, and my solar panels, and then like dude reaches out to grab the plug in and it zaps him right here instead of where it scientifically normally would. That's the stuff I was sitting around thinking about. Like honesty is pretty virtuous. It's like, yeah, that would suck. But it's a science project. That's sort of not really a science project, but I got the rest of these out in the shop. These multi-plugs, they're all different sizes. The one I got in the shop, so I can plug in different devices with the same plug-in. But I also have spliced the wire. So I lucked out that I found this other piece, because I knew where this was at. But I'm probably going to put some heat shrink on this, put it back together. You know that thing we just talked about? That's what I was thinking about. So instead of, like you plug your computer in and that little plug's there, at the, you know what I mean? One of these. That's what I want to build into my work desk. But, this being the case, one of them could be the 12 volt side. And just for the sake of science, I could have the capacitor in conjunction with it, right? Bridged or whatever in the system. And then, if I needed to plug in to something else, if I mount the other female ends along it, kind of like a computer or stereo that has multiple ports, I could just switch the tips to the next one and then switch the setting on there. Science-wise, if I had to have 6 volts to that specific area, like a test light, but the opposite. It's hardwired, there's not a light, but it's got power to the wire side, and the tip is the hot. And you touch it to find out if a relay will turn on or off. Stuff like that. Yeah, so this is super good. Computer science, electrical engineering, weird shit. One of these is fun to have. Just personal opinion. And I love this one, so. That being said, that's what I was thinking about. But I was also thinking about if I want to, like lowrider dude that's smashing switches and shit. Except for it's my coffee table. But it's cool, man. Trust me, I got it. It'll work. So that's what I was thinking about. I just want to make a video because I'm playing with the new Power Director and the new video editor. I downloaded 2 apps and I like them so far. They both have paid options, and truthfully, to tell you the truth, I plan to partake of a paid option just this next month.